Hey everyone, this is Nick with Tenacity.ai, my co-host Jason. You're listening to the Cloud Cost Optimization Podcast. Today, we're going to dive into how AI, which is on everybody's mind, will change the landscape for FinOps. Especially with the recent release of GPT 4.
I agree with you because I think GTP was like a car, it is one of those dyslexia sort of two letters that are easily transposed between each other. Chat GPT.
Yes,
it's a mouthful.
It is, and the faster I say it, the more I screw it up. So let's dive into that. First of all, what we're seeing as the fundamental change there in generative AI. I think that from 3.5 to 4, we're seeing just like a massive jump in the capability. Both you and I have used it.
Both. It's crazy.
It is.
It's crazy.
It is. What are some of the main differences that you're seeing?
The leap between the two, it's hard to describe because it was only 3 months. It was like we got this new thing that had all these like little bugs in it that were like, and it did those jobs pretty well, but you really had to rewrite it to in 3 months. It doesn't have the meat, like writing articles and things like that. But in 3 months, it went from making mistakes to writing articles that have no mistakes in it. They just might not be thoughtful as much as you and I would write one, but it went from barely being able to write simplistic Python scripts and things like that to now being able to churn out entire applications with, understanding how to talk to it and how to tell it what to do things. So, it's one of the first things that we'll do, and you and I this is like one of the no-brainer ones. It's going to automate repetitive tasks, right? It's going to help find repetitive tasks to automate. Which is also
AI in general. AI in general is going to help with
AI
that.
in general is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Sorry, we took a jump there.
So this applies to FinOps too, right? I mean, it just applies in general to FinOps. It's going to help with us in our cloud cost optimization efforts. It's going to help automate repetitive tasks and find those things. So there's a lot of other things that I'm sure we're going to talk about, but it is going to completely transform our lives for sure. It may not be everybody's, but from a technical perspective in our industry, completely transformative.
Yeah. So when I think about separating starting the topic here with generative and jumping into kind of other AI, separating the two, I think when you're talking about AI in general, there's so much stuff. I mean, there's anomaly detection, right? You really cannot do this without advancing.
A human can't do
AI, right? Not in anything at scale. And when you look at how to manage, doing fleet management, again, we're going to get to scale where AI is going to be necessary because a human is not going to be able to get their arms around the number of units, the number of containers, or the pure breadth of serverless infrastructure necessary to run some of these applications and run them efficiently and not get stuck in doom loops and all the things that are going to affect costs over time. Like what it should look like in the future is that you have something to do and it potentially costs you a lot for mere moments, and then it starts to cost you nothing, and that's where AI is going to help us with predicting and thinking about how to do that actual fleet management so that we maximize the efficiency of the code we're deploying or the infrastructure that we're deploying. So I think that's one. When it comes to generative AI, I think there's a complete game changer here in that you are going to bring the arcane down to the mundane, and being able to put in the hands of business analysts, to put in the hands of practitioners who are outside of the computer science sphere or the software engineering sphere, the ability to ask questions and generate pieces of code that will help them in their jobs and run more effective cloud environments. And we're not just cloud infrastructure, but this has the potential across the board to make things more efficient. You and I have asked this question, like, how do I reduce my CRM bill, right? Just to use a dumb example. I can't wait till the day that I can ask a computer, like, wait a minute, I need to, here's my CRM bill, here's my CRM usage. Help me reduce this. And it's like, hey, you don't use these 80,000 contacts. Wipe them out and pay less. That's what I want.
Think about research. Like, right. Hey, I'm using HubSpot. Give me 3 competitors to HubSpot, their pricing and their pros and cons. And it will, I mean, it's just like a task that used to take us, maybe an hour, a couple of hours to go get the data we want. Now is a question. And it's not like people say, well, Google does that. It's not really. You still have to go. We're talking about.
It's so overly commercialized. Yeah.
Right. We're talking about like being able to say, I want these things because I'm doing research in your example on HubSpot competitors. I want to understand the pros and cons versus HubSpot and the pricing versus HubSpot. And everything will be accurate. It'll just spit it all out to you. We're talking a huge amount of time saved. And honestly, like it allows humans to focus on things that we're good at, like solving problems. We're not good at doing things the same thing the same way every single time. We're just not good at that, right? Yeah. I mean, to go try to drill a hole in a piece of wood by hand in 20 of them in the same spot within a micrometer. Like you can't do it. A machine can, but you can't. And it's similar here, right? It's gonna basically we'll go to solving problems, and people who know how to solve problems will be able to leverage this and use it. I use it all. I was just using it the other day to write code. How many times I don't write code very often, but I needed a Python script for something in Zapier. And I just went to ChatGPT and said, I need a Python script that does this. And it was copy and paste into Zapier. I had to change like one value just because I didn't write the value. It was like one variable I had to change, and boom, it was working. And so now it's going to reduce. It's like to think about time to market on all of these things. Like time to market on a problem is on a piece of software or something like that is going to be insanely faster than it ever has been before. It's transformative.
Yeah, and it's not without its problems. I mean, it's there's advancements that have to happen that are going to continue to happen. The code it's writing right now is not at its most elementary stage. It's becoming a little more sophisticated, but it's not at the most sophisticated stages either. It's not as advanced as it could be. But I think we're going to see that in the coming months and years. And I think that you're going to see that as
the plugin, Nick. The plugin. As soon as it's able to it can't even use the internet right now. It just can't. So the plugins are coming out where you're going to be able to actually say, use your knowledge plus all the knowledge out on the internet to write me this piece of code. That doesn't even exist yet today, and that's coming out very soon. So this is going to be a snowball that, like you said, rapidly starts to grow and will become. It's going to be interesting to see what conversation we're going to have in a year about this. Like how much different our conversation today will be in 1 year. I'd be very interested to hear. I'm very interested in that episode we do in a year about how generative AI has changed the landscape, not what we pontificate it will change it to.
I think the trend will be that you're going to see organizations as they're adopting FinOps. As you see them gather, this is going to happen. It's going to explode, right? FinOps is exploding right now. As they adopt more, and they need that expertise at a high level from an engineering perspective, you're going to see them be able to offset some of that cost and exposure from that very narrow set of labor. That's hard to find. It's very expensive to acquire and have on hand. Offset that by generative AI. In being able to have their broader team, their analysts and their practitioners look for solutions to the problems they see inside of their environments by leveraging generative AI and using that to help the engineering team. I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're gonna see that. I think there's also a downside. Like let's talk about the cons, right? There's certainly security and privacy concerns here. When you start piping your company's spending data, configuration data into generative AI platforms. What are the sorts of things that could happen that we need to have solutions for? That's what's going to happen over the next year.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's like, what's the, I guess for every great thing that this is going to bring us, there are people out there that will exploit it, right? So there are people out there, they exist today. They try to hack into systems. They're, for whatever reason, ransomware, trade secrets. If they're not using generative AI to try to infiltrate systems, then they're also not keeping up with their, because their job, right, or whatever they think their job is, as a criminal. So yeah, I mean, it should know how to break into systems that it has helped write. I mean, right. It should.
I think we're going to have all sorts of. Well, I think that the ability to use AI that can take in a lot of information from a lot of areas is just going to make it more able to. It's going to learn how to exploit that information as well. So that's one. So and then it takes a bad actor to leverage that.
I mean, you can find these things on Google too, right? I said, like you can find exploits that hackers have posted that people don't know about on different forums. It will make that information more easily accessible, and it will probably make those people's jobs protecting that a little bit more difficult. Well, probably a lot more difficult. I mean, we're somewhat guessing here because we really don't know, but the only example we have of this is like Terminator 2, right? It's like, will the machine rise up against us at some point is the question.
Well, I'm not so much worried about that as feeding it data to, allow, that it can learn from the metadata that is fed to an environment around optimization. Could that be used to exploit the environment? And I think the answer is yes. Not by some AI overlord that gains sentience, but by humans who can then leverage that. So I think that there are real concerns we need to think about from a security perspective, from a privacy perspective. What are we sending to it? Certainly, I come from a healthcare data analytics background, so this my head already is spinning with, wow, the power of being able to ship data to AI to start thinking about early detection of like breast cancer, right? But then wait a minute, there's all these privacy concerns, and how do I secure that, and how do I ensure the privacy of the individuals and so on? Like there's so many issues I think we have to come up with. But then there's also like the simple like internal governance. Like, well, wait a minute, what are we going to ship? How are we going to use generative AI? I mean, the power of generative AI is in its broad ability to learn from everything and everyone when
from
we
data points we don't have in our
scale
brain.
It down.
Right.
When we myopically scale it down to just be contained to what we do, in a lot of ways, it can lose its effectiveness. And I'd be interested to see how they solve that problem, right?
The more guardrails you put on it, putting guardrails on it means it's not really generative, right? I mean, like you can't just tell it not to learn things, right? Don't learn this specific thing. I mean, you're not supposed. Anyway, Italy just banned it. I mean, it's for a government at this point to not understand that banning an application does absolutely nothing, especially an open API application, doesn't make any sense to me. It just, like, seriously, I could create an app today and start selling it in Italy that uses OpenAI as a backend, and they wouldn't know the difference. But they banned it for whatever, for the same thing you just said. And it wasn't because they know there are issues with privacy. They banned it because they don't know, but they think there are at a high level.
Well, and I just read an article where a couple of Samsung employees put a bunch of intellectual property and other data into generative AI to help with their work.
ChatGPT.
Right. And then realized, or others realized that, wait a minute, we can't do that. Like that, this is against our own internal policy. We can't, we're making public, trade secrets and internal information about the organization. So it's
I wonder
there
if
are
we
all
could
sorts of
ask it
implications.
now to reference the Samsung code that was put in. That's a good. I was like, I wonder, like, if we could find something from that article and say, recreate whatever code Samsung employees put into this thing. I wonder if it would try to do it. That's a good one. I might try that.
So I think, I think there are a lot of broad implications of AI on the FinOps landscape. I think there's some really neat near-term benefits, especially around generation of code, it being used as a tool, right, for the practitioners, for the engineers, in helping them move very, very quickly to solutions around cloud cost optimization inside their own organizations. I think there's some pretty cool, kind of midterm tomorrow type stuff around, can I feed it data securely and have it do analysis and spit back out to me how I should be thinking about my forecast and how I should be thinking about my spending. And tools like Tenacity AI do this. We're not leveraging generative AI. We're leveraging different types of AI to help with this. But that's there. And then there's kind of the long term implications of like, well, wait, what can we do and what are the broader concerns? We don't want to create a potential issue for ourselves down the road. So I think there's going to be some interesting changes to FinOps in organizations at large.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. All right. Awesome. So, all right. For our listeners, head out to tenacity.ai, download the Cloud Cost Optimization Handbook. You can book a demo with us. We do full FinOps services as well as help organizations stand up their own FinOps practices. Internally, working with our partners, we can actually do the initial optimization, get you in the right place, and then help you contain that cost, forevermore. We also are out on the /r/cloud cost optimization Reddit thread. Hit us up there with any questions, comments that you have. Of course, like and subscribe, leave any comments. We are always looking for your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.